The entire village gathered in front of the townhouse, whispering in shock. Chief Henry, the same man who used to beat women like they were drums, was kneeling on the bare ground, shivering, his left eye swollen, his agbada torn like a rag. "Baba, stand up now," one elder begged. But he shook his head violently. I can't go back inside," he stuttered. "Please, somebody should help me beg my wife." This was the man who once boasted that no woman born of a woman could ever stand up to him. But today, he was trembling like a wet kitten. And from inside the house came her voice, calm, dangerous, and cold. "Henry, if you move 1 inch without my permission, I will show you that I am not your former wives. Come back inside. Now." Everybody froze. The real question wasn't how she broke him. But who exactly was this third wife? And how did the feared woman beater finally meet the one woman he should never have messed with? Chief Henry grew up with everyone praising him. He's smart. He's fearless. He's a natural leader. But by the time he became successful, those leadership qualities turned into something dark. He wanted control. Absolute control. He believed women were toys created for him. He loved power more than he loved peace. He had the charm of a prince, but the character of a demon. Margaret was sweet, gentle, the kind of woman who apologized for things she didn't even do. By the 3rd month of marriage, Henry's true nature emerged. He slapped her for using too much salt. He beat her for answering a phone call. He dragged her outside by the hair for talking back. He locked her inside the house for 2 days because a wife must learn obedience. Margaret lived like a prisoner wearing a wedding ring. The day she escaped, she had only a small gonomosgo and tears running down her face. Her parents begged her to return, but she refused. "Henry will kill me," she whispered. And that was the end. Or so she thought. Because Henry shrugged it off and simply said, "Women are like buses. When one goes, another will come." Ruth was bold and outspoken. At first, people believed she would tame him. But narcissists don't change. He studied her weaknesses and struck harder. He broke her phone because he saw a male doctor's number. He beat her at 2 a.m. because she didn't kneel properly. He smashed a mirror on the floor and forced her to clean it barefoot. Sometimes he would choke her just to remind her who is in charge. The last straw. One night, she ran out with blood on her lips and fear in her eyes, screaming, "Help me. My husband will kill me." Neighbors intervened. Police got involved. Her family dragged her out of the marriage before it ended in obituary. Henry told the press, "She's mentally unstable. I'm the victim here." That was his pattern. Hate you, then make you look crazy. But karma was warming up. Because he was about to meet the woman who would rewrite his destiny with fire. Her name was Kemi. She was beautiful, dangerously beautiful. Calm. Smart. Well-mannered. But with a quiet strength that even thunder would respect. People warned her. He beats women. He's not a husband. He's a curse. No woman stays with him. Kemi only smiled. What nobody knew was that Kemi wasn't just a woman, she was a warrior raised by a mother who always said, "If a man raises his hand at you, break the hand before it kills you." Kemi didn't like trouble. But she was trained for it. Henry, blinded by her looks, thought she'd be like the others. The first month, he acted charming. Second month, he started controlling things. Third month, the monster returned. But this time, he found a hurricane waiting. It started with a slap. Henry slapped Kemi because she refused to kneel to serve him water. She stood there slowly, wiped her cheek, and said, "Are you sure you want to continue?" He laughed in her face. "You think you're special. My other wives used to beg." Before he finished. Go, sir. Kemi gave him a slap that rearranged his ancestors. Henry staggered. What did you do? He shouted. Kemi stepped closer calmly. I don't tolerate nonsense. If you hit me again, you won't live to raise that hand tomorrow. Henry raised his hand. But this time, Kemi caught it midair. Twisted it. Dragged him to the floor. And pinned him with the precision of a trained fighter. That night, for the first time in his life, Henry tasted fear. The next morning, villagers saw him limping. His ego bruised. His pride cracked. His voice shaky. From that day, the abuser became the abused. He couldn't shout at her. He couldn't raise his hand. He couldn't even argue. Because she would simply give him the look, and he would sit down immediately. The day he knelt outside begging her to let him back in, it became the talk of the whole community. People whispered, "Give Henry." Kneeling for a woman. After all the wives he beat. Omo. This new wife no be anybody mate. Kemi didn't destroy him, she simply taught him something he had never learned all his life. For weeks after Kemi humbled him, the entire village walked around with a secret smile whenever they saw Chief Henry. The same man who used to strut like a lion now walked like a confused goat. But monsters don't die easily. They retreat, study, and wait for a moment to strike back. Henry began plotting. One evening, he sat in his office staring at his reflection. Me. Henry Oladimeji, reduced to nothing by one woman. He clenched his fist. No. I'm still the man. He made a vow. By the end of this month, Kemi will kneel before me. Even if I have to break her. But the problem? He still didn't understand who he was dealing with. That night, Henry's first attempt failed before it even started. He tried raising his voice at Kemi again, shouting, "Kemi, you will respect me in this house." She looked up from her book and said only one thing. "You can't dominate what God did not give you permission to control." Henry laughed, but deep inside, her words shook him. He didn't know she wasn't speaking randomly. Kemi came from a lineage of women protected by ancient spiritual fire. Women who never bowed to abuse. Women whose spirits fought harder than their hands. Henry was trying to fight a woman whose ancestors had never known defeat. But he kept trying. Henry invited 3 of his friends, men just as wicked as him, to advise Kemi. In his mind, if she sees other men supporting me, she'll submit. They sat in the living room like elders, forming a fake council. One of them said, "Kemi, a husband is the crown of a woman's head. Submission is your duty." Kemi folded her arms calmly. "And abuse is your hobby." The men exchanged glances. Henry felt shame crawling up his neck. Kemi continued, "If you're looking for a submissive mannequin, go to the boutique. If you want a living soul, learn respect." The men left embarrassed. Henry's plan failed. Since physical intimidation failed, he went spiritual. Henry visited an old herbalist deep in the forest, the same man who allegedly helped him gain control over his second wife. The man listened and said, "You want me to subdue your wife?" Henry nodded quickly. The herbalist sprinkled cowries, but immediately stepped back. Fear swept over his face. "Who is this woman?" Henry frowned. "She's just a stubborn woman." "Shut up." The old man barked. He leaned closer and whispered, "There is fire around her. A fire that does not burn, but destroys. A fire older than your lineage. Touching her is touching a covenant." Henry's heart skipped. What does that mean?" The herbalist began backing away. "I cannot touch her. And if you are wise, neither will you." He chased Henry out of his shine. Henry left humiliated, and even more determined. One night, Henry reached his breaking point. He waited until Kemi was in the kitchen. He stormed in, grabbed her arm, and shouted, "Today, you will learn who I am." Kemi turned slowly. Her eyes didn't show fear. They showed something worse, disappointment. "After everything," she said softly, "you still think you can break me?" He tightened his grip. But before he could react, something pushed him back so violently he crashed into the dining table. There was no one else in the kitchen. Just him. And her. Kemi didn't move. She didn't shout. She simply whispered, "You are fighting a battle that wasn't assigned to you." Henry tried to stand, but his legs shook uncontrollably. A cold wind filled the kitchen. He started sweating like a goat before slaughter. "Who are you?" he stammered. Kemi stepped forward, her voice low and calm. "The one sent to end the harm you've brought to women. God didn't give me to you for marriage, He gave me to you for judgment." Henry collapsed to his knees. His breath was shaking. His mind was screaming. Even his shadow looked afraid. From that night onward, Henry could not raise his hand. Not because he didn't want to, but because his hand refused to obey him. He had nightmares where Kemi stood over him. He woke up sweating, shaking, begging invisible forces for mercy. He finally understood. He wasn't fighting Kemi. He was fighting the consequences of years of wickedness. And the judgment had only just begun. One quiet Saturday afternoon, a strange rumor spread through the village like wildfire. Chief Henry's ex-wives are coming back. People came out to watch because nobody believed it. But just before noon, a taxi parked at the entrance of Henry's compound. And stepping out were Margaret, the one who escaped with tears on her wedding night. Ruth, the bold one he nearly destroyed. The villagers gasped. How can they come back? Did Kemi call them? Is something happening? Margaret clutched a folder to her chest. Ruth carried a small bag. They walked straight into Henry's compound with confidence neither of them had when they left him. Because this time, they were not returning as victims. They were returning as witnesses. Henry saw them from upstairs. His legs almost gave out. You too, what do you want?" he stuttered. Margaret lifted the folder. "Justice," Ruth added. "And the truth." Kemi stepped out from the kitchen, wiping her hands calmly. Her presence was like thunder hidden inside silence. "You called them?" Henry shouted at her. "No," Kemi replied. "I didn't need to. Your actions called them." The villagers gathered quickly, forming a circle. Even elders came. Even children stayed quiet. Henry tried to go back inside, but Kemi's voice stopped him. "Don't run. Today is your day of reckoning." He froze. Margaret opened the folder. Inside were photos, medical reports, police statements she never had the courage to submit. She held one photo up, her own face swollen beyond recognition. The crowd gasped. "Henry did that to you?" someone whispered. Ruth stepped forward, lifted her blouse slightly, and showed the long scar across her waist. "This is where he pushed me onto broken glass." The villagers murmured louder. Henry began trembling. Margaret pulled out a voicemail recording she kept for years. She pressed play. Henry's angry voice blasted through the compound. "You think anyone will believe you? You useless woman. You're in my house. I own you." The crowd erupted. Women shook their heads in disgust. Men stared at him with embarrassment. Henry dropped to the ground. "Kemi, please, tell them something," he begged. Kemi looked at him with no pity. "You sowed wickedness for years. Today is simply harvest." Suddenly, the village oracle, Baba Asada, walked in. He was not called. He just appeared as if guided. People stepped back in fear and respect. He pointed at Henry. For years, you tormented women. Their tears flowed to heaven. And heaven does not waste tears. He lifted his staff. The fire around Kemi is not for her protection, it is for your judgment. She was planted in your life to end the cycle. Kemi stood quietly behind him. Henry shook his head violently. Please. Baba, please. I didn't know. The oracle stepped closer. That is always the problem. Evil men think ignorance is a shield. But judgment does not care. Henry burst into tears. Then it happened, the moment nobody expected. The village chief spoke. Henry Oladimeji, from this day onward, you are stripped of your honorary title. You are no longer a chief. And you will compensate every woman you abused. The crowd clapped. Henry grabbed the chief's feet. Please, please don't do this. The chief pulled his leg away. This is not punishment. This is justice. Ruth and Margaret signed documents legally exposing him. Kemi stood by, watching silently like an executioner of destiny. The villagers chanted. Eh! Eh! Let justice be done. Henry cried harder, shaking uncontrollably. His downfall was complete, publicly, spiritually, socially. As the crowd began to disperse, Margaret turned to Kemi. You saved us, she said softly. You saved many women. Kemi smiled gently. I only did what the universe assigned me to do. Henry crawled toward her feet. Kemi, forgive me, please. I beg you. She looked down at him. I forgive you. But forgiveness does not erase consequences. She turned away. Henry reached out, but Margaret stopped him. You taught us pain. Today we teach you boundaries. Ruth added. And that is the end of your terror. Henry watched as all three women walked away, strong, free, and untouchable. He was left kneeling in the dust with no title. No respect. No power. No voice. Just a broken echo of the monster he used to be.